Okay. Hello, today is May 15th, 2024. Welcome to our NAWA, Florida featured presentations by our own very special artists. Today we are delighted to have Muffy Clark Gill. She is an active board member, finding fantastic venues where to exhibit and jurors. And we're so proud of her work and her achievements, and that she's such an active member of our board. Muffy started creating batiks. She was exposed to batiks when she traveled to Uganda with her mom. And during high school, she was creating batiks and earning lots of awards. And she studied graphic design and then continued creating her batiks. And being now the year of international batiks, she has gathered a group of international artists, I believe about 30, and right now she's live from the National Botanical Garden,
It's actually Naples Botanical Garden.
Yes, Naples Botanical Gardens in Florida, Kapnick Hall, and we will see her work. She will explain all about batik, which is rather fascinating. And welcome to all of you. Thanks for joining in. I see we have a few more members. So Muffy, you have the floor.
Okay, thanks, Annabelle. It's great seeing everybody today. I have been involved in batik, as Annabelle said, since I was in high school. I went to Uganda with my mother as a child and saw an exhibition of batik art and craft. And I got really excited about it and decided I wanted to learn. So I went back and experimented with melted crayons and red dyes and started, and even indie ink, and started creating artwork at that time. And I studied it over the years. I went to Boston University, got a degree in graphic design, but I never left my love for batik. So I took some classes after I got out of college, and you'll have to forgive me because there's people in the background, so I can't exactly silence them. But I also, hold on one second. Excuse me, can I ask you to talk a little quietly? I'm sorry, I'm doing a presentation.
Muffy, yes. Please don't worry, because there's the feature on the phone quiets them. We don't hear them. They don't bother us.
Okay, no, they're fine.
It's beautiful. Okay. Continue. It's beautiful.
Okay, so I got very involved in experimenting with batik, and when I moved to Naples, oh my God, 40 years ago, I saw a woman was teaching batik, and I said, you know, I'm going to take some remedial classes and start playing with this again. And I've been doing it off and on ever since. And back in 2020, I had joined the Batik Guild after meeting members of them at a conference, World Batik Conference in Boston in 2005, and got involved with the Batik Guild later on, but got to know them well enough that I suggested that they wanted to have an exhibition in the Naples area, you know, because they've never really had a North American exhibition. So I originally was working with the Center for the Arts in Bonita, and we had it originally set up with Jennifer Perry, who did the NAWA show there. But I had it originally set up for the fall of 2020, and well, we know what happened with that. Then we rescheduled it the next year and got canceled again. And then the third time, it was supposed to be October 2023. Meanwhile, they had a change of curators, and the curator that came in didn't know anything about the show, so he scheduled another show in its place. And I had to put my thinking cap on and say, oh my goodness, what am I going to do about this show? I want to see it succeed. And meanwhile, the Batik Guild had organized the International Year of Batik, and it was going to be in 2024 and 2025. So I thought about it, and I was in an exhibition in this room 2 years ago called Woven Fiber Art Now. I was part of a group of 5 different fiber artists, and we all had work on display here. So I had a relationship with the people who handle the exhibitions at the garden. So fortunately, I put through a proposal. I worked with Rosie Robinson, who's the Batik Guild's overseas chair, they're UK based. So I was working with her from England, and we put together a proposal that the garden accepted and scheduled it. They scheduled it for May 3rd through June 30th of this year. So we've been actively working on this program with the garden since, I'd say, June of last year. And a week ago Friday, we had our member preview, and I'm happy to say they had 400 members arrive for the reception. And it was the largest artist reception they ever had at the garden. We had a lot of people asking about batik, and I'm just going to go walk around now and show you some things and talk about some of the artists, because I think you'll find it fascinating. So this first one is by Gabrielle Lasport. She's an artist from Canada. She's from Toronto area, and she has done a combination of batik and resin, and she has this so you can shine a light behind it, but you can see it's really fascinating. She I'm just looking at it, and it's 32 by 32, but I just find it, she's done 2 of these that got accepted. And part of the program with the garden was they asked us to submit artwork that went to how we understood climate change, how climate change has affected us. So we had 31 paintings accepted. A few people had 2 pieces accepted. We could do a maximum of 2 entries per artist. And we had quite a group here. This one you're looking at now is by Andrew Wynn. He's from England. And of the 31 pieces, and with the opening last weekend, 12 of the artists had arrived from all over the world to attend. So we had people here from the Netherlands, England. One woman came to see a friend who was here from California, all the way from Bali, Chile, who is our woman who is the coordinator for our Instagram site, and several people from all around the United States. So it was a really fun time. Let me just share screen for a second and show you. Oh, hold on. I hate this. This is where I still screw up. Okay, wait a minute. Never mind.
Do you need help? What is the problem? I'm right here.
I'm trying to share my screen and it keeps wanting me to start broadcasting.
Yeah, no, if it does on the share screen, you should just see a little window that tells you what you want to share. So
well, I did, but I had screen and then it started saying you want to broadcast.
Oh, that's interesting.
Okay. Wait a minute. Okay. All right, I'm back again. Okay, I got it. So anyway, let me just show you. We set up a table over here, and the garden has recently started doing their signage in 3 languages. So they're doing it in English, Spanish, and Creole. So they have set up a table here of describing the batik process. And we have a table here because I'm going to be doing a live demonstration on June 1st from 10 to 12. But you can see I supplied, let me move some of these. I supplied pieces for people to look at. Like over here is a sample of a batik etching. And that is of an owl that I did with wax and dye on silk. This one is a sampler that I show my students when I'm teaching batik classes. So you see here, this is a type snowstorm. Now these pieces on this sampler are all styles of Japanese batik. So there's a lot of, they do more brushwork than the Indonesians. The Indonesians use stamps and jantings, which you can see here. This is a janting from Indonesia that I bought at the Batik Gallery. And what happens is you dip the janting into the hot wax and draw with it. It comes out the little spout. This is another one that has 3 spouts, which I hardly use because it's so fragile. And most of the work that I do is using a Japanese sheep's hair brush like this. But this is another interesting take on things. If you want to create interesting striations, like right here, you cut into the bristle brush and dip it in the hot wax and pull it across. And this is called shiki beaky. Love that term. And then this is a stencil I cut and then stamped with the wax and then dyed it. Up here is another stencil, and at the back is a stamp called a jap. So right here is an example of a jap. I have 3 japs here on the table from Indonesia. So this one features bugs. So you can see here, here's how it prints. And you can do all sorts of fun things. This is another stencil that I created of water lily leaves. You can see here's another jap back here. And this was a brochure that I picked up at the International Folk Art Market in Santa Fe a couple years ago, promoting a Chinese batik group. And you can see they do very fine, delicate work, all hand drawn. And that just gives you a bare base, but let me walk you around and show you some of these other ones. Now this one is by Rosie Robinson. Oh, the stencils are made from poster board. And I cut the stencils with the poster board with an X-Acto knife. And if I want them to last a long time, then I paint over with house paint, but I push the hot wax through the stencils to get my pattern. So this piece here is by Rosie Robinson. She's the co-worker with me on this show. She's from England, and I just love the way she does her reflections. If you look up close here, it's just all these wonderful little lines. And this one, she does batik on cotton. The majority of the people here do batik on cotton, but a couple of us do the batik on silk. Just gonna walk you over. You can see how big this haul is. It's good size. Over here, we have Kata, our batik artist from Chile, and she was hanging out with me last week. She makes all her pieces using organic dyes, and she especially uses leaves, tea, and organic grounds. And so when she was here, she did a demonstration last Saturday, and the garden was kind enough to give her some eucalyptus leaves that she boiled and made dye with, and then dyed her pieces. But you can see this is one of her interesting pieces, and all kinds of wax lines. She draws with a janting and some stamps, but I just love her use of the colors, you know, being all organic dye. She also did a dye thing in indigo. So I'm going to walk around here. Now this piece is from Anne Stemp. She's English. She's one of the founding mothers of the Guild. And it's titled Rise and Fall. And with each one of these pieces, there is a explanation about how climate change affects us and what made us create this piece, you know, each one of us. So I'm going to move on to here. I love this piece by Beth Evans. This sold right away. Let me see if I can get back a little bit more. Yeah. And you can see Beth is from Colorado. She and her husband, Jonathan, own a batik gallery in La Veta, Colorado. And in September, they are having the opening of what's going to be called Batik USA. So all American batik artists are being invited to attend and display in the event. So I'm going out there for the opening. But just, you can look at the detail in this. This is batik on cotton. But you can see she started off here with white fabric. Anything she wanted to keep white, she waxed over. Then she gradually added her colors. She probably added the light blue, the yellow, and as she's adding each color, she's waxing over it with whatever tool she's working with. And then she's dyeing. And you're building up your layers of color until basically the piece is covered with wax. And then I'm not sure if I'm sure she ironed it out, but I'm not sure if she boiled the wax out or if she had it dry cleaned. But most of the time when you're working on cotton these days, you have to boil it out, which is more traditional because dry cleaners can no longer do dry cleaning. I'm going to move on to this one. This is an amazing piece. This is by an Australian doctor who learned the traditional batik process in Indonesia. And this is all hand drawn. And just see the work and the crackle involved in this. And we had a double time her shipping it, and it's called Eutheria, Becoming One with Nature. So she is using Javanese concepts to create this large work. It is, okay, 41.33 inches by 27.56, because they had to convert from metric. Now here is another one of my favorites. This is by Anne Hanley. She's an artist from Chicago. She works with batik on paper. So she's building layers of wax up on kozo paper and adding color. And she's using traditional tools. She's drawing with a janting. It got a little bit of glare here, but you can see how bright you can have colors. And she's using actually watercolors versus dyes. 95% of the people in the group use dye, but when she's working on paper, she uses watercolor. But look how brilliant it is. It's one of my favorites, and she sold it the first night. So it's like she underpriced herself. How do I remove the wax? When I'm working on, you don't. You have to remove the wax at the very end. I mean, the Japanese do it so that they'll do a color and then they have somebody remove the wax for them, and then they'll come back again and do another layer. But 95% of the time you're leaving the wax until the very end. So this, I know this is not screen mirrored, but this is the main entry wall as you walk into the show. Over here, we have a painting from David Luck, who's from Paducah, Kentucky. And I like the way he did these leaves. Interesting contrast. Again, it's another batik on cotton. Here is a painting by Jonathan Evans, the president of the guild and Beth's husband. You can see this basically is a very simple batik, but it has a lot of depth to it because he's using yellow, pale orange, orange, maybe a little bit of lavender up in this area, and then black. And the black is the color that holds the whole piece together. But he's talking about the fires in Colorado. So behind me, this is a wall hanging by Ria van Dijk. She's from the Netherlands. And she was here for the opening. So it was a lot of fun hanging out with her. You can see it's a freestanding piece. It's kind of difficult, but I love the way you walk around and you can see, because the beauty of batik is you can look at it from both sides. Most of the time, the same design will transfer to both sides of the fabric. So it gives you this stained glass quality to it. And over here is a piece by Marilyn Solomon from California. Now this piece, she did remove the wax on every dye bath, which is massive. She put many, many hours of labor into this. If you can see the detail in it, especially the fine crackle in the background. That's not easy to do. And next to us is Magdalena Nadrova, and she's Polish. And this is called Drought. And again, another batik on cotton. And up here is Claire Drew. She was the past president of the guild, and now she's English, but she lives in France. I love this piece. She's done the batik and she's woven copper threads into it. It's a really pretty piece. Over here is one by Rosemary Young, and she's done this on, she's Canadian, and she's done this on rice paper. And again, this is probably using watercolor instead of dye. But it's just the detail work on this is really nice. You can see the texture of the rice paper. So I'm going to walk over here now. And the next one you're going to see is mine. And one of the requirements for the show is you had to have it a minimum of 30 inches wide. So this is 30 by 40. I call it Heat Rise. Is actually Pat Zalisco helped photograph in the Bahamas 2 years ago while on a sailing trip. And then, no, an answer about the wax is the paper is ironed to get as much of the wax up. There's always going to be a residue in the paper. And the wax I use is 50% soy wax, 50% beeswax. And that makes it easier to steam or remove from the fabric. But a lot of people use a combination of beeswax and paraffin wax. But in this picture, I photographed a swimmer snorkeling at a marine park. It was called the Exuma Cays National Marine Park. And I photographed this image of the woman swimming with all these fish swimming around. And I started playing with it and realizing I could adjust the color and do what I wanted with it. And I wanted to promote the idea that the corals are dying and being bleached. So by making this red and starting, I originally started doing all the white waxing. And then I did a pale gray layer. And then I started up here with the swimmer and did several layers of pale dye. And this is a piece that is on silk that I have mounted on gallery wrap canvas. You can see here on the edges how I've wrapped it around. And and then I had to go back and add more pieces. So the lines on this are crazy, but I wet the fabric and gradated the pale blue dye going down the piece, and then gradually added the other colors while it was still wet. So I had this nice gradation. And the same for the red. So where the blue met the red, I've got this wonderful shade of purple. And then at the end, I went back and just did a little bit of touch up with some fabric paint because there was a couple spots I wasn't quite happy with. And this is the second version of it. The first version I did was on a silk twill I brought back from Japan. And at the time I was working in my office because my studio was under construction and I didn't have all the materials to steam the fabric properly. So when I steamed it, I have to steam it to set the dyes. The dyes ran and I just wasn't happy with the way the colors came out. I haven't thrown the piece away, but I'm going to go back and touch it up and do some things with it. I'll probably embroider on it. So you can see a little bit more detail here. It was a challenging piece to do, but the piece I'm doing right now is going to be even more challenging because I'm making a 2-panel piece that they're 2 36 by 48 panels. And I'm doing a view of an iceberg I looked at from a cruise ship while cruising off the coast of Antarctica. And I just finished getting the drawing on the fabric, and I'm using that silk twill again because I like the weave of it. But it took me 8 hours to put the design on the fabric because I have to draw the design on fabric with a pencil to get the outlines in. It's like doing a stained glass window. I have to think through how I'm layering each color. So when we go from that, we're going to this one by Renata, and she's Brazilian, but she's currently living in Arizona. And this piece is the signature piece for the exhibition. And she titled this Allusion to Still Life. And again, another one, Batik on Cotton. Let's see here. And we're going to turn around and look at this really interesting piece. This is from Sri Lanka, and she's made a flag. And when you look at most of these pieces, they're wall hangings because of the cost of shipping from different places in the world. It was just getting so expensive. For example, the woman with the indigo piece, put down what she thought was the value of it. She ended up spending $660 to ship it here, which was horrible. They're getting it sorted out, but is it Asian food and grocery? No, art on rice paper. No, you buy sheets. There is a place in Japan called Awagami, which I actually visited last October. They are a handmade paper factory. They will use what they call kozo paper, which is made out of the stalks of mulberry leaves. And while I was there, I took a workshop how to make the paper. So I got to see their wonderful facility in the leaves. So you can see what she's done here. It's just how she wove all these in here. It's just really cool. I thought it was a really interesting piece. Now I'm going to walk over here, and I love this piece. This is another piece by Rosie Robinson. And this was after a forest fire, but look at the reflections of the trees in the water. I mean, to imagine that's all in batik. You know? She teaches classes. She's expert. She's the expert. She's been teaching for years. She stayed with me as my house guest in my new studio last week, so I got to know her really well. And she gave me a book she wrote as a thank you gift. But it just never cease to be amazed how talented these people are. And this piece is by Brigitte Gustafsson. She's from Sweden. Another one, Batik on Cotton. Over here, this is one of my favorites. And this is a lady from Russia. And it's called Mountain. And they have actually schools of batik in Russia, from what I understand. And she had a devil of a time getting this piece here, but look at the detailing in here. There's so many little nuances of color and printing. It's just the skill in this woman is amazing. And the job she had to get that piece here, she delivered it to a relative in Georgia. And the relative in Georgia shipped it to Rosie in England. And then Rosie shipped it to the United States. So, you know, it just goes to show what lengths we'll do to display our work. Yeah. The next one here is Heather Gatt. She's English. This is another batik on cotton. Over here is another piece from Beth Evans, the Colorado artist, and I love this one as well. They live in the mountains near the Great Sand Dunes, and this is another one reflecting forest fires. And you can just see how simplicity can also win and give you such a wonderful line and design. My next one here is by Lisa Kattenbreaker, and she's from Washington State. And I love this piece as well. She did a podcast about a month and a half ago and talked about her work and talked about the exhibition here at the Garden. And I love this piece, and it has sold. So I'm really happy. We have had 5 pieces sell in this exhibition so far. The next one is my friend Lee Herndon, who is a fellow silk batik artist here in Naples. We both had the same mentor teaching us batik on silk techniques, and her name is Kiranada Sterling Benjamin. She lived in Japan for 18 years and learned all the process of Japanese batik, and then taught workshops and taught both of us. She taught us about how to make the batik stencils, and you can see how Lee has made most of this up with batik stencils. And Lee does a lot of batik clothing, and what she does, and I've learned it from her, she uploads the designs to a print site and then has her clothing printed, and it looks gorgeous. It's just, she has all different ways of doing it. Here's another one by Jonathan Evans, the president of the Guild, and this one has sold. Again, he's using very simple colors and a lot of movement. Over here, we have another one, and this woman, Susan DeSouza, is from England. And she's using batik with cold water Prussian dye. Well, most of them are using cold water Prussian dye. And I love this. Pat Cisco's just sending me a note. So this is another one by Lee Herndon. You can see again, she used some stencils. She works a lot more of stenciling, but she also uses a lot of shiki biki. The shiki biki brush, you can see it in here. And then this is stencil, and this is what's called snowstorm, little spatters. And we're gonna go back here now. And this is another one from Anne Stump from England. And it's called Exodus, and wax and heat set fabric paints on cotton. And you can see there's fire, there's wind, there's animals fleeing, care, hope. It's another interesting piece. And I think I have all of them. So I am happy. Oops, no, I got two more here. We can't forget these two. These are very important. I love this artist. She's English, and her name is Marina Elphick. And this one is the Huarani girl, and this is another batik on cotton. But look at the detail in this piece. This is really doing batik at its finest. And you know, when people don't even realize it's batik, like in this one, it's just, you can see it in the little details, like how the leaves are drawn. And she's using a lot of janting work. She just has such a mastery of the art. You see the little hummingbird up here, and the orchids and the hibiscus. It's, again, one of my favorites. And next to it is the second piece that was done by Gabrielle Sport. And this one is batik, ink, and gold foil. So she's mounted, I guess this one's on paper, but she has mounted it on the resin. And it's got a plywood back that she hung it on. And when it showed up at my house, because a lot of the pieces arrived at my house so I could make sure they got to the garden all right, they looked like gorillas had stomped on the box. They had seriously damaged the box that both pieces had come in. Fortunately, the pieces weren't damaged, but it was just really annoying that UPS damaged the boxes. So this is a list of all the artists participating in the exhibition. So you're going with Australia, Canada, Chile, England, France, Netherlands, Poland, Russian Federation, Sweden, Sri Lanka, and the US. I think that's what these sold for? Oh, okay, well, wait a minute, let me look. This piece with Lisa went for $5,500. Let's see. Anne Stemp's, Anne Hanley's piece went for $2,100, and she feels she undervalued it. And I told her she did undervalue it. Because the biggest problem we have with batik is not enough people understand it so that they realize the value of the time and labor involved in creating the work. You know, they don't realize there's as much craft and talent to it as doing an oil painting, so they don't want to pay the money for it. And when you do get the money for it, it's a real pleasure. Just to give you another example, this other piece that Beth sold went $1,200. I mean, for the work involved in that, that's a giveaway. It's really sad. And again, we do as much labor as anybody else, and it isn't so much the labor, but the thought process and the technique that we use to get to our final ending is just as important to us as what the piece looks like when you're done. So on that note, I guess I'm ready to take questions.
Wow.
Yeah, they are very labor intensive.
Beautiful. Congratulations on putting up such an impressive exhibit of international artists. Kudos to you. Wonderful.
Oh God, it was a labor of love. Let me change around here again. Yeah, it was really a labor of love, and I was just so happy with the results. And so were the members, because when I originally proposed it, for the botanical garden, the president of the guild said, "Oh, we can't have these in a botanical garden." And he's a cranky 80-year-old man. And I'm like, come on, get a life. We can't have him. And then he wrote me the other day and said, "I had such a great 5 days here. Thank you so much." And I'm like, yeah, you should. Yeah. I'm looking at Emmy's. Okay. I'm trying to see Emmy's. Can you read me back Emmy's question?
Please stencil. What is her paper?
She is doing the same thing I'm doing. She's using poster board and cutting the stencil with the poster board. And we can use them over and over again by coating them with house paint. And that stabilizes the poster board. And when you're done, when you get too much wax on the stencil, you have to go back and iron the wax out of the stencil, and then you can reuse it again. So again, you're having to iron out wax and remove wax to get to your final product. Other question?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because first of all, I'm really blown away by these pieces. You know, the skill and the artisanship, it's just really mind-blowing. They're gorgeous. So my question is, because I don't really know much about the process, like when you say you iron the wax out, are you ironing it on some kind of absorbent surface?
Yeah, I am using layers of blank newsprint, and I have to keep changing the newsprint out until there's no wax coming through.
So do you like flip the piece over, like you're ironing it on the back and you're melting the wax out and it's going into the newsprint?
Yes.
I gotcha.
Yes, and
incredible.
Yeah. Well, and just as an FYI, I do teach workshops on this. I can teach people in my studio. I do usually 2 or 3 day workshops showing basic batik processes. And I can do a longer session, but I've been teaching at several different groups. I'll be teaching at Vero Beach in November, and that'll be a 3-day workshop. I call the workshop Batik Techniques. So if people want to learn more about it, you know, I'm always happy to spread the gospel of batik.
You know what, that's one of the reasons I can't understand how it doesn't spread out. Like when you're doing like when she was talking about, when Randy was talking about the melting the wax and you're talking about it.
It does spread out.
But they get such I see such tight edges on some of the work.
Well, it's because it's the tools they're using, like the little fine lines. 9 times out of 10, they're going to be using that janting tool or a Siska, you know, like they use for Ukrainian Easter eggs. Those are all part of the tools. There's another tool I didn't bring with me that is a Malaysian tool called a shoe janting. And then, of course, you've got, let's see, this one. You know, this is your traditional janting, and they have these in all different size spouts. So this is a very fine spout, but the trick is learning how to hold it in your hand, and then you've got to deal with drips. So Jonathan came up with a really good method where he cuts a tennis ball in half and holds the tennis ball under the janting when he initially takes it out of the hot wax so that the drips don't get on the fabric. But it amazes me. I went to Indonesia in 2015 because I wanted to see batik and I wanted to see it done by them. So I went to Bali and I went to Java. And at Bali, I went to a batik factory, and it's amazing. The ladies drape the fabric they're drawing over a post and let it hang in their lap, and they draw with it in their lap. It's not stretched. Wow. Everybody else I work with here, we stretch our fabric on frames so we can have the fabric as tight as possible. Because when we start the piece, after we put the drawing on the fabric, we have to, or at least I do and Lee does, we make a mixture of soy milk that is spread on the dye. It's spread on the fabric so that it retains the color of the dye better. And Lee and I both use Japanese kimono acid dyes. versus the rest of the group uses more likely Prussian or cold water dyes. And I don't like using those as much because they have a lot of nasty chemicals in it. And you have to worry about the toxicity of it, because I have a friend, Marianna Fraser, who does wonderful batik work. She does massive pieces that are like 10, 15 feet long in her studio. And she does public art installations. If you walk into Charleston Airport, she has a huge batik hanging from the ceiling. Plus she has batiks in the visitor center, but she does aerial landscapes in batik. And she works with, most of the time she's working with cotton and Prussian dye. And even though she's working with a hood in her studio, she has developed some asthma from the wax that she uses, as well as the powdered dyes. And that's another reason why I work with soy and beeswax, because I started developing an allergy to the paraffin. And I have another friend the one who was here in town, who got me restarted, and she was using paraffin, and she's got a little bit of an asthma allergy too. So, you have to really be careful with the health aspects of what you're working with.
Yes, I've learned so much from you. I really appreciate the fact that, you brought this all to the light, all of the whole group, all these people. You're bringing a very old technique into the light of today. I think it's incredible. It's wonderful.
Thank you.
So Muffy, what you're wearing, is it, you made that batik?
No, this is actually, this is a batik that I bought from a Nigerian artist by the name of Gasali Andemo. And you can see this was embroidered on top of the batik.
Beautiful.
But this is all, and he's interesting because when he does his batik, and I've taken workshops with him, he makes stamps out of upholstery foam. So he'll take a block of thick upholstery foam, he takes a knife and a heat tool and cuts the design into the top of the foam block. Then he dips it in the hot wax and stamps it on the fabric. And when he's drawing, he also makes little styluses out of long pieces of upholstery foam. And they're sort of like wedge chisel shapes. And he dips those and draws with those. So these lines and dots that are down here, they're all drawn with a piece of upholstery foam. And then when you look at these blocks on here, they're all drawn with a stamp. So I have about 2 or 3 of his pieces, and he does teach workshops there. He'll be teaching at Aya Fiber Studio. If you want a wonderful place to learn about fiber techniques, you need to sign up for classes at Aya Fiber Studio in Stewart. She has a very comprehensive workshop of doing different techniques. I was just there in March taking a encaustic workshop with artist Lauren Glessner. And but she teaches different styles. She ran the trip to Japan that I took last fall, where we did an indigo and katazome workshop. Now, katazome is a Japanese method of cutting stencils out of mulberry paper and using a rice paste resist. Wow. And the rice paste resist is used instead of the wax. And then the rice paste has to dry, and then it's dipped and dyed into indigo fabric or dye or whatever color you're working with.
You yourself have amazing pieces on your web of shoes, of masks, of clothes. Very impressive. A bathing suit, very, very nice. So you design it, and then a company gets these printed for you?
Yeah, the same people who do Lee's clothing, they were nice enough to turn me onto the clothing. And I upload the image, and then they use dye sublimation to print on leggings, bags, swimsuits, the shoes. Very nice. It's fun. It's really fun because one of my favorite outfits is based on one of my mixed media pieces that was a sister to the one that just sold at the NAWA exhibition at Art Ovation. So I have it as a short sleeve top, and then I also have it as a hoodie jacket. And then I have done a tote bag, and I've done matching canvas shoes. So there's all kinds of permutations. Once you know how to upload the pictures, they have all the templates and you load the images to the templates and you're able to print.
Also, I see that you have several art in public places, several pieces in the Naples Botanic Garden, Florida Department of State, Volusia County Courthouse. It's numerous, Marco Island Historical Museum. So did they purchase these from you? Did you donate?
Yes.
Them? Did they purchase
Well,
them?
the garden, at the garden, it was a donation,
Okay.
but the one at FGCU was a purchase through their Art and Public Buildings program. Volusia Courthouse's art.
You froze on my end. There.
I have another couple pieces I've donated to FGCU.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Your
Hey,
website-
can you put the camera a little bit higher on your face? I'm kind of
Sometimes we don't
losing
see your
part of it.
face.
There you
Just
go.
only-
Thank you.
So go ahead. There's another question for you.
No,
Okay.
it's actually more of a comment. This is something I just want to add to what Roberta said, is I think that it's very important when artists bring a traditional art form into contemporary times. And, you know, because you're keeping that art form alive, but it's evolving. And I see that so much in this exhibit that it's very inspiring. So thank you. This was really an incredible presentation.
And it's
Oh,
a
well,
beautiful
good.
show. Absolutely gorgeous show.
Yeah, well, if you do get a chance, please come over and see it. It's going to be here till June 30th. And I think you'll like it. And they have a wonderful cafe here. The garden is in full bloom right now. So it's a beautiful place to walk around and enjoy the scenery. It's hot, but it's hot everywhere this time of year. But
Right.
it's a wonderful garden. It's a nice place to get a lot of inspiration from.
So tell me something. Is it true that women started this art of batik making? Because some people started in Java. Is it true that it's women who started it?
Well, I'm not really sure, because when you go to Indonesia, the women do the handwork, but the men do the stamping. So when they're making large bolts of cloth with the japs, it's the men standing at a table with a padded top and cotton over it, and they're stamping the japs on each piece of fabric. And they've learned to do it with such precision that's why you know, when you buy a yardage of batik, it's usually done by men, which I thought was really kind of weird, but okay. But the women do the beautiful handwork. And when you go to Jakarta to the batik gallery at the National Textile Museum, they have a whole building in the back where you learn batik, and they have workshops and train.
Wow.
Another question, in your web, do you also have photographs, right? Not everything is batik.
Yeah, no, I have a lot of photography, because the photography is the backbone of my batik work, because I use that as my inspiration and source of design and color and ideas. So, you know, it's funny because I sell almost as much photography these days as I do the batik. And I just came back from a 10-day cruise to Africa and Spain and France.
Wow.
And I especially spent time in Morocco, and I was photographing doors in Morocco. So I think they're going to be the subject of some of my next series of artwork.
Nice.
So you'll see some new things coming, and it'll be in batik as well as photography. But the photography is the inspiration for the batik.
Well, again, thank you so much. It's been really wonderful, the whole talk and seeing the whole display, the whole exhibit.
Thank you very
Okay,
much,
well-
Muffy. Continued success. This has been delightful. Thank you for taking the time of bringing us to the exhibit and telling us a little bit about each artist. This has been really special.